there have been about 100 successful coup d'etats in Africa since the early 60s.
Wow.
There are more than that, but others were not successful. Those that were successful were about 100.
Wow.
Yeah. Out of those 100 successful coup d'etats, the transformative leaders to emerge from them are less than 5. We're talking Thomas Sankara. We're talking, of course, Ibrahim Traoré. We're talking Abdurrahman Chani of Niger. We're talking Assimi Goïta of Mali. And there may be 2, 3, 4 others that are arguably transformative, but debatable. So if you look at that,
I'll even add Jerry Rawlings.
Exactly.
Amongst the
10.
So that makes the 5.
Exactly.
We were stuck at 4. So now we have 5. Jerry Rawlings.
Exactly. Which still leaves 95. So anybody who makes the argument that we just need to look at coup d'etats as the best way of giving us great leaders, the evidence on the ground disproves that argument. Africa has had about 500 elections.
Wow.
Out of those 500 or so elections, we have ended up with about 380 presidents and a few prime ministers. Surely there has to be something wrong with that system then.
Democracy.
Yeah. Because it has given us 380 people that were mostly bad for us, that have actually left Africa poorer.
Peace and blessings, everybody. I am your brother Orina, all the way from the motherland, all the way from Kenya, Nairobi, nation's capital. Welcome to Sell Afrika to Africans. Yet again, we have a power Pan-Afrikanist back on the show. A lot of things are going on. Uganda, we'll cover that intensively today. Bobi Wine is in hiding. The wife was mistreated, to say the least. And Museveni, it was a sham election. Let's be real. It was a sham election. So we'll talk about it. But before we get there, I want you guys to know the historical context of Uganda. All the way during, colonial times to now, so that you can understand Uganda from a wider scale. Well, today we have the best person to explain this. My brother, my friend, DJ Bwakali. DJ, how are you doing?
Great, I'm doing great, bro.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here again.
It's an honor.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, bro.
I haven't seen you this year.
Yeah.
How is your New Year taking you?
It is awesome. It's I really think that this is a year that Africans, we have to wake up even more. I know we're already awakening, but we have to step it up much more this year. I have a very good feeling about that. I posted a video yesterday. It's a new quarter of the 21st century. It's not just a new year. Exactly.
And if you look at the first quarter of the 21st century that has just passed, there's very little progress that we have made in us attaining our full independence.
Yeah.
I just pray that this quarter might be the quarter.
Absolutely.
Now, to me, I'm thinking that this quarter might be the last quarter we have. Like this is the last chance we have. That's my theory.
Yes.
Maybe you differ with it, but my theory is that this quarter is the last quarter we have in us attaining truth. If we don't attain freedom this quarter, we might never get a chance to do so. Well, let's. What do you think about that? Is that an alarmist way of looking at it?
Yeah. Not at all. There's that phrase now or never, and there's a lot of power in that, because if you don't use the present moment, if you remain overtly futuristic, that next year I'm going to do this, next decade I'm going to do this, you disempower yourself in the present. So I totally believe that we must wake up to the reality that indeed it's now or never. We no longer have the luxury of either blaming past generations or waiting for future generations. Yeah,
that's exactly what I said in the video I posted yesterday. Well, we can start with Uganda.
Yes.
What do you think about what's going on in Uganda? But before we go there, let's start with independence.
Yes.
From independence, Obote, Idi Amin, Museveni. Let's just look at the history of Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there. The historical context of Uganda.
Yeah.
From independence till now. Even we can touch on independence if you can, all the way to now.
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, my name is DJ Bwakali.
Yes.
And Africa is my superpower. It is so important to understand that bit of superpower, because for too long, Africans live like victims, or we have a victim mentality. But once you understand the essence of who you are as an African, once you fully appreciate your Africanness, then you'll never go through life feeling like you're either second fiddle or you're a lesser person, irrespective of the actual realities of your day-to-day life. Now, for Uganda, I'm going to touch on 3 extremely powerful truths. Mm-hmm. And as you know, truth will set you free, because truth opens up your mind and you realize, wow, mm-hmm. That's the kind of knowledge that I'm talking about. That's the kind of truth that I'm referring to. And I will take you all the way back to the 1890s, so that you appreciate pre-independent Uganda and how we got here. Mm-hmm. And the first lesson is embedded in that period. More precisely, in a guy known as Kabaka Mwanga II. Okay. This guy resisted colonialism. This guy launched an armed rebellion. They defeated him, quote unquote, and I use that because the mighty British Empire, mighty in terms of having modern weaponry, he still gave them a run for their money. Okay. And then he came back and fought again. And then he came back. And remember, at this time in the 1890s, Britain is just making its first tentative steps into the East African region. And these guys are still waking up, East Africans are still waking up to the reality that these people are here to exploit us. Mm-hmm. These people are here to possibly vanquish us. Mm-hmm. But Kabaka Mwanga II refused to accept that as his fate. Okay. And therein lies the first powerful truth that I want to share. Even though the British then banished him to Seychelles, because he was so powerful as a symbol and as a leader of a kingdom,
Buganda Kingdom.
Exactly. Also a leader of a movement that was saying no to the British, that they had to banish him to Seychelles. And on the surface of it, that might appear like he lost. But he didn't lose, because he encapsulated the first powerful truth that we're looking at today. And this truth is this, my brother Orina. Africans should never accept exploitation as their fate. Okay. Africans should never ever accept that, what are we to do? I call it the shrugging your shoulders syndrome. Mm-hmm. We must say no to the shrugging your shoulders syndrome. Mm-hmm. Because shrugging your shoulders is saying, well, what are we to do? The dollar is a dominant currency in the world. What are we to do? America is a military superpower that can parachute into a country like Venezuela or any other country and arrest the president. What are we to do? China are the guys who are buying all our goods. China are the guys who are running the mines in Congo and a lot of parts in Africa. What are we to do? The Rapid Support Forces is continuing to kill people, continuing to perpetrate a genocide. What are we to do? Kabaka Mwanga showed us that the shrugging your shoulders syndrome can be defeated and should not be a part of Africa. Now, it's important to point out here that the Ugandan martyrs that were killed during this period, that is often used to show that, in fact, this was a very evil guy. But that is not a black or white story. There are a lot of gray areas there. Kabaka Mwanga was simply looking at Christendom as something that was being used to dilute his power, to erode his kingdoms and his people's sovereignty. And anybody who then came, using that was an enemy. So Kabaka Mwanga was not the devil that he's then made out to be, that he executed these fellow Ugandans purely because they were Christians. That was not the scenario. It's a topic for another day regarding religion and our place in religion. But suffice it to say for now that Kabaka Mwanga II was singularly focused on what can we do to defeat the British imperialists. Okay. Now, having understood that, this then takes me to a second very powerful truth that is linked to that before we go to the independence era. Okay. In 1907, Winston Churchill arrived in Entebbe by boat from Kisumu. And when he arrived in Entebbe, he then proceeded to travel to Kampala, and he traveled across Uganda. Winston Churchill was blown, completely blown by the beauty of Uganda. Winston Churchill was smitten. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. In fact, he described it as a beautiful garden, end to end. And then he uttered those famous words that Uganda is the pearl
of Africa.
Exactly. Because he was utterly amazed by how amazing this country was, this land was. Not just by appearance, but by fertility. And indeed, Uganda is a place that is extremely fertile, is a place that is extremely beautiful. And we must never forget the beauty of Uganda and the beauty of Africa. Okay. In fact, all of us Pan-Afrikanists and all of us who love Africa must step up our efforts to also articulate the sheer beauty of Africa. Okay. Because a lot of times the challenges and problems we face can easily paint the narrative that that is all there is to Africa. For instance, Sudan, as I'm sure you know, has even more pyramids than Egypt.
True.
Yeah. Which means that ancient civilization in Sudan is extremely rich. And the same can be said of every African country. Yes. The utter sheer beauty of this continent is on another level. Yeah. Now, Winston Churchill saw that. But the same year of 1907, because my second truth is not even regarding Winston Churchill saying that Uganda is a pearl. Okay. But it has to do with something that happened in 1907 that must awaken Africans completely. Now, at this time, Ugandans were getting really tired of the imperialist British. They were observing these white guys from Britain beginning to behave like they own the place. I can't show up in your house and then begin to tell you, you see that couch there, Orena? It shouldn't be there, it should be there. You see the food in your fridge, remove all that food that you have, the matoke, put there oats and other things. However well-intentioned I am, I can't show up and begin dictating how you should run your house.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so the Ugandans were seeing this and they were not taking it kindly. They were also seeing something else that is happening today. Now, here's the second truth that is very powerful. In 1907, as Winston Churchill was traveling through Uganda, the Nyangire rebellion was taking place in Bunyoro. Nyangire simply means refuse. Okay. Simply means refuse. So the Nyangire rebellion in 1907 was the people in Bunyoro saying, we refuse the rule, the horrible misrule of the British. What were the British doing? The British were already executing a very evil but powerful virus that continues to afflict Africa. It's called divide and rule. They were doing that by appointing the Baganda people as leaders, even in non-Baganda territory, like the Bunyoro region.
Okay.
They call it, the euphemism they use for that is indirect rule. They give you the illusion of being in control, but they're the ones who are in control. So in this scenario, they are doing it by appointing these Baganda chiefs, Baganda leaders, in regions that were non-Baganda territory. And the Nyangire rebellion was saying that you're not just going to come and destabilize our governance systems, destabilize how we've been doing things for millennia. We refuse. Hence the name Nyangire. Now, what is the second powerful truth there? It is how this rebellion was organized. The Nyangire rebellion. It did not have a singular leader. And that is yet more evidence that in most of Africa, this issue of a singular messianic leader was simply not the case. The Nyangire rebellion was simply led by local chiefs, local opinion leaders. They are the ones who led this rebellion, and it made it so hard for the British to simply banish one person, like they did to Kabaka Mwanga II. Because how are you going to banish like hundreds of opinion leaders? Now, Kenya's Gen Z in 2024 tapped into that spirit a little bit when they talked of a leaderless,
tribeless.
Exactly. In this scenario, it was an issue of having several people coordinating and working together to organize this Nyangire rebellion. So what is the second powerful truth that is embedded there? In one word, organizing. Africans, we must move from merely looking at the diagnostic mentality, really appreciating what the problem of Africa is. We must take it beyond that and go to the prescriptive mentality.
Okay.
Where we realize that, okay, this is a problem. What are we going to do to address this problem? What is the prescription of that? And that's about organizing. For example, it is so critical for Africans to begin organizing and to begin defining what we mean by that word organizing. In the case of Nyangire, in that year, 1907, it was them saying that we refuse this indirect rule from the British. We refuse to have a scenario where leaders are imposed. We are rejecting this divide and rule tactic. And then they organize themselves. That's why we're talking about it. You see? So we must answer the question, in present day Africa, what does organizing look like? A very quick example, we must, as we keep pointing out how multinationals from China, from the West, are completely exploiting mining communities, whether it is in Congo or Burkina Faso, we must then answer the question, what do we do then? How do we organize ourselves so that we change that systemic injustice of mines located in Africa not benefiting Africans, not being run by Africans? And you see, it is not as simple as just nationalizing, because there have been cases in Africa where, yes, they nationalize, but nothing changes for the local people, because it still remains trickle down. Only that now, instead of the Chinese getting the bulk of the profits, it is the state which is getting the bulk of the profits without a clear understanding on how do the local communities benefit.
Okay.
And in my book, local mining communities must always be the majority shareholders of whatever mines are located in their regions. How that happens is what I mean by organizing. So we must understand in this second truth that whatever critical challenge Africa is facing today, we need a modern day version of the Nyangire rebellion, which means that many of us as was the case that time, begin to organize on how do we refuse this and how do we do things differently so that the solution that we are seeking is achieved. You see? That then brings me to the final truth, third truth of pre-independence.
All right.
Pre-independence Uganda, because remember, we're looking at the historical angle. Yeah. Now, the way the British tried to work with the Baganda people that then necessitated the Nyangire rebellion, let us remember one thing. The British then literally ended up exiling Kabaka Mwanga II, the leader of the Baganda people, in the 1950s, because even them, they are waking up to the reality that these people, they tried to project us as their junior partners, but it wasn't because of affection or solidarity, a twisted form of solidarity. They were simply using us to perpetuate the exploitation. But when Kabaka Mwanga was banished and exiled, also, just like Kabaka Mwanga had been kicked out of Seychelles, Kabaka Mwanga II also ended up being exiled by the same British. But there was an uprising that then led to his return 2 years later in 1955. And what is the second powerful truth there? Africans have to understand something that is very, 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 very important. The third powerful truth there is that on the geopolitical chessboard, the geopolitical global powers, they do not partner with Africa for the love of Africa, but it is always to perpetuate their own national security interests.
Of course.
Because once you understand that, you appreciate Russia's help, but you do not begin to look at Russia as your new BFF, and everything Russian is then awesome.
Yeah.
You begin to understand that on the geopolitical chessboard, you're either the grandmaster or the pawn. Sometimes they might promote you from a pawn to a bishop, or from a pawn to a rook, or from a pawn to a knight, like they did to the Baganda in the 1900s when they promoted them to the status of chief. But then that led to a rebellion. And the same Baganda who had been promoted are again demoted when their leader has to go into exile. When Africans look at stuff like that, you've got to understand that you cannot treat any geopolitical power as now being your BFF, your best friend forever. You must understand that on this geopolitical chessboard, it is always about their own national interests. That doesn't mean that if Russia is good to Africa, that we reject them. It simply means that as we work with Russia or Turkey or Qatar, the Gulf states, whichever entity comes to work with us, as we work with them, we must also be clear on what is our end game. What is our end game? Because in a game of chess, there is a singular goal for the grandmaster to checkmate the opponent. So we must always be clear that what is our end game, even as we work with the Russians. If the leaders of Central African Republic and a number of African countries understand that, then they will not continue having Russian presidential bodyguards in perpetuity. Because the question is this: if you need foreigners to protect the president, who's going to protect the ordinary people? Who's going to protect? Are you then going to import the entire Russian army to protect all the citizens of Central African Republic? But I understand that for a brief period of time, the president may need that because the risk of assassination is very high. But the problem we have is that that becomes an end in and of itself. Instead of then now working to ensure that you have a very elaborate security system, a very strong military that protects not just the president, but every citizen in the country. So that is a third powerful lesson of pre-independent Uganda, that the same way the British played around, used divide and rule, and temporarily promoted the Baganda people, is the same way they ended up exiling the Baganda king. And that should show us that we must be very careful when we are relating with all these global geopolitical players, because in the absence of that, we are always going to be sitting ducks, but to different people, to different players. Now, I wanted people to understand some of those dynamics of pre-independent Uganda, so that when we move on now to the second stage and make a few things clear, they will understand, they look at Uganda within that context and understand that Museveni is not happening in a vacuum.
Okay.
You know, there's a reason we're seeing what we're seeing. So we've got to look at those patterns. Now, Uganda has had 8 individuals as president since they got independence. 8 individuals. But 4 of those individuals were president for less than a year.
Okay.
In fact, one of them, a guy called Paulo Mwanga, was a president for, drum rolls, a record, 10 days.
Wow.
10 days. He was a president for a record 10 days.
Wow.
Another guy called Yusuf Lule, the one who took over after Idi Amin was kicked out, he was president for a record 2 months. And then another guy called Tito Okello, the one that Museveni then kicked out, he was a president for a record 3 months. Then another guy called Godfrey Binaisa was a president for just less than a year, 327 days. Now, what that should show you is that there has been a lot of political instability in Uganda in the 60s, because the first president of Uganda, actually the only one who was constitutionally elected or selected, actually elected, was their first president, this guy Kabaka Mwanga II. All other presidents after him initially became presidents through a coup d'etat, including Museveni. Yes, later on, he's won. Initially, he used to win elections free and fair, but later on, they became sham elections. But after Kabaka Mwanga, all of these other 7 individuals to become president after him, they became president either through appointment or coup d'etats. You see, which already says that it is a very precarious governance system, that sometimes we like to sweep that under the rug, but you know, we have got to address that as the elephant in the room, that when you have a situation where you have had all these individuals becoming president through extra-constitutional or unconstitutional means, then that leaves a mark on the country. Now, before some people say that Obote did win elections, but when Obote became president for the first time in 1966, it was through another coup that then Kabaka Mwanga II then had to go into exile, and Obote became an executive president after that. You see, so understand that when you're looking at this scenario where you've had all these coup d'etats taking place, and for any Africans who are currently entertaining the illusion that the best way to get great presidents is through a coup, Uganda should show you that indeed that is not the answer. It's totally not the answer. And a quick note there have been about 100 successful coup d'etats in Africa since the early 60s. There are more than that, but others were not successful. Those that were successful were about 100. Out of those 100 successful coup d'etats, the transformative leaders to emerge from them are less than 5. We're talking Thomas Sankara. We're talking, of course, Ibrahim Traoré. we're talking Abdurrahman Chani of Niger. We're talking Assimi Goita of Mali. And there may be 2, 3, 4 others that are arguably transformative, but debatable. You see? So you tell me, just do the math. If there have been 100 successful coup d'etats, and less than 10, let's even be generous and say that maybe they gave us 10 potentially transformative or truly transformative leaders. That is still a teeny tiny fraction. It leaves 90 other times that we ended up with the same autocratic leaders, the same corrupt leaders, only that now they're in uniform. But Africans are not looking for autocracy in uniform. Africans are looking for truly transformative leaders. So if you look at that,
I'll even add Jerry Rawlings
exactly
amongst the
10.
So that makes the 5.
Exactly.
We were stuck at 4, so now we have 5 Jerry Rawlings.
Exactly, which still leaves 95. So anybody who makes the argument that we just need to look at coup d'etats as the best way of giving us great leaders, the evidence on the ground disproves that argument. Uganda as a country disproves that argument. Completely. You see? So having understood what Uganda has been through to then reach to Museveni, 40 years ago, Orina, a day like this, 40 years ago, a day like this, in 1986, Museveni was on the verge of becoming president of Uganda. He was on the verge of defeating or of staging the successful coup that then toppled Tito Okello, who had been president for only 3 months, Tito Okello. But Museveni was on the verge of taking over 40 years ago. By the end of January, Museveni had taken over. He became president of Uganda. And the first 10 years of his presidency, Museveni was like the 1980s or early 1990s Ibrahim Traoré. Museveni was so revolutionary and such a visionary that when they tragically assassinated Thomas Sankara, and there couldn't even be a memorial service for Sankara in Burkina Faso, because remember, his one-time best friend, Blaise Compaoré, was the one who was behind it, together with the French and CIA.
Very sad.
Yeah. But the man that you mentioned, Jerry Rawlings, was at this time president in Ghana after having taken over in a coup. So Jerry Rawlings organized a memorial for Thomas Sankara.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. And Museveni attended to show you how Museveni, and this is 1985, he's not even president yet, but he's really almost becoming president. He attended that. So understand that Uganda, after having all these multiple presidents, because out of the 8 individuals to be president of Uganda, 7 of those individuals were president before 1986. Because after 1986 January, Uganda then knew only one president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Now, understand this. The reason we're then saying, and we'll touch on that briefly, or rather we'll touch on that in the second half of this, the reason we're then saying that the ballot box can no longer be an answer to Africa's governance challenges is because when you look at Uganda, the ballot box never ever worked. When the ballot box then started reinforcing Museveni's presidency, hid inside this ballot box is a virus. And this virus is a virus that then does 2 things. It begins to transform these presidents into imperial presidencies. Or it begins to transform these presidencies into puppet presidencies. And those are 2 sides of the same coin. In the case of Museveni, Whereas the argument can be made, and to be fair to him, you can make so many accusations against Museveni, but you would have to put a lot of evidence on the table to show that he's a puppet president for the West or for China or for Russia. Mm-hmm. He is somebody who has always been able to speak his truth to the global bullies. Okay. One of the best articulations on how NATO and the West triggered the war in Libya and ended up, completely messing up that region and later on the Sahel by extension. One of the best arguments for that was by Museveni. Yeah, when he clearly explained how NATO completely thwarted them, the African presidents, from playing a role in that post-Gaddafi era. You see. However, Museveni, the virus that is hid in this ballot box that has affected Museveni, whereas it didn't turn him into a puppet, it then metamorphosed into the CRA, the corrupt ruling elite. Because the Museveni of the first 10 years would never have voted for the Museveni who was on the ballot. Okay. On 15th January. Mm-hmm. Because he himself is said that he was not going to be president forever. Mm-hmm. He had a crystal clear vision for Uganda. He even led a constitutional dispensation in Uganda, and a new constitution for Uganda emerged within the first 10 years of his presidency. It was a very consultative, collaborative constitution. It was not a scenario where his word became law. Mm-hmm. So that Museveni was so transformative, was so powerful, because remember, he was taking over a country that had seen so many presidents, so much regime change, a country that was beaten and battered. Now, once you understand that Museveni, you have to then ask the question, how then did we end up with this Museveni that we have today? Mm-hmm. And what are the lessons to be learned there?
Wow. By the way, you skipped Idi Amin. What do you think about Idi Amin, Dada?
Idi Amin. History is a weird creature, but history is a very accurate, history always spotlights in a very accurate manner, eventually. Because history doesn't just respond to individual opinions here and there, or the loudest voice here and there. Why am I saying that? Because at the moment, history is being rather kind to Idi Amin because people are fed up with a lot of imperialism, neo-colonialism, that is currently rearing its ugly head and jeering Africans, sneering at Africans. So when people look at how Idi Amin treated imperialism as, mocked imperialism, that is something that resonates with people. But I always tell folks, Orina, always go beyond the surface. Always go beyond the surface of everything and anything, which is why you may have seen the series I did on Traoré before he became president, because I wanted people to also begin looking at the substance of Traoré and not the myth of Traoré. Of course, the substance is great, but I'll also talk a little bit about how Museveni, who was like Traoré, then ended up with the Museveni that is there today, and what are the lessons to be learned there. But back to Idi Amin in this scenario, did you know that Idi Amin was amongst the King's African Rifles, KAR, in the 1950s that fought against the Mau Mau? Idi Amin was amongst them.
I'm aware.
See, so yes, people may say that, he was just a soldier and he was just a young guy and later on he became great. But you have to look at that to begin understanding who Idi Amin was. Of course, all human beings have multiple sides to them. We are complex creatures.
Yeah.
anybody who looks at Orina and says you're either this or that is not doing you any favors. Because human beings as a whole, we're just complex creatures. And I usually say that hid within us are both devils and demons. I mean, demons and angels. And depending on the prevailing circumstances, sometimes the demons come out, sometimes the angels come out. But that is a very individual thing that speaks to spirituality. Topic for another day.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, understand that, yes, indeed, Idi Amin was amongst the King's African rifles that fought against the Mau Mau. Understand also that at one point, Idi Amin had very, very, very close working relations, not just with the British, but with the Israelis also. Understand that there's a reason Mwalimu Julius Nyerere led his army against Idi Amin. There are people who may just quickly say that Nyerere was working for the imperialists. That's why he was fighting Idi Amin. But that would be missing the point. Because you can accuse Mwalimu Nyerere of many, many things, but you can never accuse him for being a puppet. In fact, Tanzania's economy suffered largely because he was not a puppet. Ujamaa that he espoused that became the law of the land in Tanzania really, really painted him in bad light with the West. You see? And the reason Mwalimu Julius Nyerere fought Idi Amin was simply because Idi Amin then attacked Tanzania in Kagera. And Idi Amin wanted to threaten that they were going to go all the way to Dar es Salaam.
Yeah.
You see? And then there's more to unpack there, but Mwalimu Julius Nyerere then said the famous phrase that we have the will, we have the ability, and we have the reason to defeat Idi Amin. You see? And then Tanzania waged a war that culminated in 1979 when, despite the support that Idi Amin had from mercenaries, especially from Libya, the Tanzanian army was able to defeat Idi Amin. Then I believe a lot that you can argue with somebody who has a theory, but you cannot argue with somebody who has experienced something. So you and I should do our best to talk with the Ugandans who were in Uganda in the 1970s, who experienced Idi Amin's rule, who experienced as the Ugandan shilling completely collapsed, like completely collapsed, who went through all that, then ask them what they think regarding normal human survival and flourish. All theories aside of foreign policy and what have you. Because I truly believe that the first responsibility of a president is to keep the people safe. And in the same vein, the first responsibility of a president is to ensure that the people are not dying because they have no food.
Okay.
People can live because they're not being attacked. Yes, they're secure. But if hunger, which is a much more lethal enemy, ends up killing the same people, the president has failed. So we cannot romanticize Idi Amin's leadership. We need to listen to the Ugandans who went through the fact that the economy has completely collapsed. Now, the argument can be made that it's because the West hated him, so they completely messed him up. But ask the Ugandans who are there, after the Indians were kicked out, did they then benefit in terms of, was there a system that then empowered the local people to become owners, business owners? Or is it the corrupt, or did cronyism have a field day where the friends of Idi Amin then ended up mismanaging and running down these businesses?
Yes.
We owe it to the Ugandans who are there to listen to what was the experience. And I believe that is still something that is, history still addressing that. History is still sifting that so that we can understand that in terms of domestic policy, whereas personally as DJ Bwakali, I agree with a number of the foreign policies of Idi Amin during this period, especially protecting African sovereignty, especially speaking truth to global bullies. I agree with a number of those foreign policies and that foreign policy stance and attitude, because we, the African people, must walk with our shoulders high. We are nobody's doormat. We must walk with our shoulders high and speak our truth, irrespective of what anybody thinks. But there's foreign policy and there's domestic policy. So in terms of domestic policy, I truly think that Idi Amin didn't do well for his people in terms of the domestic policies. Things like sugar, if you look at the price of sugar and meat in Uganda in the 70s, especially the late 70s, before you was toppled, they were completely astronomical.
Wow.
Like completely astronomical, because Uganda's economy had practically failed.
Okay.
You see. Now, as I conclude on Idi Amin, I'll give you this picture. Imagine a father, and any viewer who is a father, imagine a situation where every time during dinner, you tell your children, we are not going to allow our neighbors to bully us. We are not going to allow our neighbors to bully us. Nobody will mess with the sovereignty of this house. But on the plates of your children, there's nothing. And every single day, you're giving these powerful speeches. But on the plates, there's nothing. Your children are dying slowly and slowly. Whereas we will agree with your rhetoric that your neighbors shouldn't bully you, we should vehemently disagree with the fact that your children are dying of hunger.
Yeah.
So I hope that through that, people can see that I have not caricatured Idi Amin the way popular media sometimes likes to do, or popular culture. I've not caricatured him as a buffoon. I have done my best to appreciate the good that was in him, but also spotlighted where I feel he let his people down. Because once we understand that, we will not whitewash, or we will not romanticize him and not learn the lessons that we're supposed to learn from his presidency. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear all these rumors, or he was a cannibal, and all these rumors about Idi Amin. Where do you think they originate from? And the people who are dispensing these rumors, why do you think that, why do you think they're really making it public? What's their aim in dispensing these rumors about Idi Amin? I mean, he was no angel. I think we've established it by now. But all these rumors that he was a cannibal and who gave us these rumors and why?
A great question. And I'm going to answer it in a very personal way. You still have great afro hair that I miss. I began losing my hair in my 20s. Not because, but imagine a scenario where I begin to own your narrative. And I begin to say how Orina's hair and beard are serving a sinister purpose. He is trying to be like the Arabs. Traditional Africa, men never used to keep beards. Men used to, I'm not saying that as a historical fact, but I'm saying how I can begin to distort your story if I own the narrative. And then I come up with all these theories about you regarding the afro hair and regarding the beard. And because you are not speaking out, you're not owning your narrative, in a few years' time, the immediate history begins to look at Orina as somebody who was a conspirator with the Arabs against Africans. In fact, he was a mole. In fact, he was serving the interest of the Gulf, and he was hiding behind Pan-Afrikanism. Now, what would be my motivation in doing that? To simply own your narrative to meet my own interests. Now, at a broader level, the narrative of Idi Amin, that caricature of Idi Amin as a cannibal and what have you, it simply serves to serve the purpose, the dual purposes or multi-purposes of the West that perpetuated that narrative, both through popular culture, through art, through film, perpetuated that narrative so that when people look at Idi Amin and extension African leaders, he was simply a powerful symbol that could be used to illegitimize leadership in Africa. Because when somebody is looking at the argument that the whole president of Uganda was a cannibal, the whole president of Uganda couldn't even speak English, people out there, they're not just looking at president of Uganda. Many of them cannot even point Uganda on the map or don't even know that a country called Uganda exists. So for them, this is just a president in Africa. For some, even a president of Africa. So such narratives are simply part of a broader fabric that are sought to paint a one-dimensional narrative of Africa or a patently false narrative of Africa. But what I want to stress even more is that it is up to we Africans to own our narrative. It is totally up to us. I think for too long, we have rightly pointed out the fact that these folks are painting Africa in bad light or inaccurately at best, or completely distorting everything. So it takes me back to that diagnostic mentality. Imagine how awful it would be if you went to a doctor and you took cancer tests and the doctor said you have grade 4 cancer and then stopped at that, Imagine how horrible that would be. Because what the doctor should then do is to go ahead to the prescription.
Yeah.
So for too long in Africa, we really articulate how we are being messed up, how we are being exploited, our challenges, our problems, as we should. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. The problem is we often stop there. So in this scenario, it would be wrong to look at how and even why they painted Idi Amin in that narrative and then stop there. The second side of that, the next phase of that I really have to stress is we must own our narrative.
Yeah.
We totally must own our narrative, because if we don't, then if it's not the British and the Americans caricaturing our leaders, it's going to be the folks from the Gulf or any other place doing the same, but in their own way, or caricaturing our culture or our spirituality. So the takeaway here must be, we really must own our own narrative. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Obote, what do you think about Obote and his leadership and what do you think about Obote, Milton Obote?
Great question, because I think we don't look at Milton Obote enough, especially asking ourselves, what is there to be learned there? Remember, Obote becomes president in 1966 when he overthrows Kabaka Mwanga II. And remember, this time Obote is prime minister, Kabaka Mwanga II is a ceremonial president. But Obote then becomes an executive president.
Okay.
For me, that is the first mistake that he does. Because executive president in Africa simply means imperial president. Look at Kenya, executive president. In fact, when Kenya was agitating for the second constitution, and let me quickly say there that someone like Raila Odinga is someone that people also must look at through the multi-layers that are in him, through the complex personality, so that, as we rightly point out, the fact that unfortunately especially in 2024, probably could have done things differently and, stood by the Gen Z uprising. He didn't. He's not there to now speak for himself.
Yeah.
But that should not negate the role that he played for Kenya to have the new constitution. However, there's another layer to that story that is linked to Obote.
Okay.
That's why I came to this. Kenya, initially, Raila Odinga and other progressives were agitating for Kenya to have a parliamentary system of governance.
Okay.
And their argument that I agree with was that whereas a parliamentary system is not perfect, of course, but it kills imperial presidency, at least it lands a knockout uppercut, right hook or left hook uppercut on imperial presidency. Because when you're talking about a parliamentary system, it means that the prime minister has much less leeway to just do things as they wish. Because the parliament can easily have a vote of no confidence in the prime minister. For the president, by the time you impeach him, you have jumped through so many hoops and done so many somersaults that when now you're like, okay, are we going to impeach him? You even forget what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
See, but for a prime minister, especially one who is not more or less ceremonial, like Tanzania's prime minister, who is appointed by the president.
Okay.
In this scenario, it was supposed to be a parliamentary system. And one of the reasons it was supposed to deal a blow on imperial presidency, the same kind of imperial presidency that Obote then introduces into Uganda. Imagine if Uganda had continued with a prime minister, head of government, and a ceremonial president. I think the story of Uganda could arguably have been different.
Okay, for the better or for the worse?
For the better.
Okay.
Because for starters, there wouldn't have been all those coup d'etats. And Idi Amin would have had to do the organizing of actually organizing a party that people can get behind. And that takes a whole other skill set.
Okay.
The kind of skill set that Patrice Lumumba had. Remember, Patrice Lumumba was a prime minister, not a president.
Yes.
And he had to ensure that his party won the elections in May of 1960, which meant a lot of persuasion, which meant ensuring you have a great team. Because a party must then win the most seats.
Yeah.
It means you must ensure that all the people running on your party are also great leaders who can win the elections. You see, it's not like presidency where you are not bogged down by a lot of that. So Obote is the one who then introduced executive presidency, better read as imperial presidency in Uganda. And that's my main beef with him. Now, he then becomes executive president in 1966. And then Obote goes on to lead Uganda, do something that I agree with, but remember he's now an imperial president. He nudges Uganda towards the left, to the consternation of the West, because at this time, the Cold War is at its height.
Yeah, 60s,
Yeah.
Oof.
Problem though, Rena, is this. It's all rhetoric. On the ground, there's barely any, people cannot see how this socialism that is talking about is translating to actual policies that are helping the people. You see, if you're looking at Cuba,
Castro.
Yeah, you're seeing that indeed, even on the ground, the socialism is helping people. There's the doctors are all over the place. To date, Cuba's healthcare
is one of the best.
Yeah, he's one of the best.
The doctors are even
exactly.
We outsource their doctors sometimes.
Exactly, in Kenya. Exactly. But from 1966 to 1971, when he's president for the first time, Uganda is not really, Uganda's economy is not really growing strong. It is at this time that even Kenyans are being kicked out of Uganda.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
People need to know that there was a big Kenyan community in Uganda that began being kicked out under the first Obote regime. He actually paved the way for Amin normalizing and weaponizing expelling people from Uganda as a political tool to meet his own ends. However much, they were packaging it. So this is happening under Obote, normalizing expulsion of people, and considering that this is a time where Mwalimu Nyerere and a number of other African presidents are screaming about Pan-Afrikanism. The Organization of African Unity has just come, in 1963. Yet, Obote sees it fit to start kicking out Kenyans en masse. So, I would have to look long and hard to find something between 1966 and 71 that I can praise Obote for. The only thing that I can grudgingly praise him was just joining Mwalimu Nyerere at an ideological level to make the argument for socialism, African socialism. But unlike Mwalimu Nyerere, who ended up having policies that stemmed from that socialism, namely Ujamaa. Yeah, for Obote, it is just rhetoric. And that makes it easy for Idi Amin to kick him out. And Idi Amin, at this time, had the support of the Israelis and the British.
Definitely.
In kicking out Obote. You see how they play around these people with us, because they were more than happy to help him, to kick him out. Because for them, they just wanted to continue destabilizing Uganda, or hopefully having a pliable president, because they were sick and tired of Obote's socialism rhetoric. And then now the second time Obote becomes president,
came back.
When he came back in the 80s, he didn't redeem himself. He didn't redeem itself because Uganda's economy didn't markedly improve. Uganda's army remained extremely rowdy, indisciplined. They were on the forefront of looting. They were just not a disciplined force at all. In fact, one of the big things that people praise Museveni for was when he took over, his army was extremely disciplined. It was on the side of the people. It wasn't looting the people's businesses because under Obote, that was the norm. So I think we would need a whole other session to go deeper into Obote. But when you're looking at it, in summary like that, that's my reading of him. I do praise him for the socialist rhetoric, but
he didn't actualize it.
He didn't actualize it.
Like Mwalimu Nyerere.
Exactly.
Now let's move to the elections.
Yes.
Well, before we go to Bobi Wine first, there was Besigye. It's the same rhetoric. Opposition leader comes in, then the suppression of voters, the suppression of votes. A person told me that Museveni is so popular in the villages. I don't know if this is true. Maybe the Ugandans who are watching can tell us in the comments below. So they're saying Museveni is popular in the villages, but in the towns like Kampala, like Entebbe, they're saying that now that's where opposition thrives. Is that true? Before we go to Besigye and Bobi Wine, what you think about them? Is that a true way of looking at the support base of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni?
I'd answer that question by making two arguments. The first argument is the colonialist weaponized tribe to divide and rule Africans. And a lot of African presidents have simply perfected that, so much so that it's unfortunately ingrained into the psyche of a sizable percentage of the African electorate, that if a president is from my region or my tribe, then solidarity requires that I support him. So there are aspects of that for Museveni. I personally know Ugandans from his region, young people even, who actually support him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is largely because of that. You know, even they are suffering in terms of a struggling economy and what have you. But even they remain steeped in that issue of, you know, he's from our region, so we support him. So indeed, in the villages, especially villages that are, you know, in the wider region that Museveni comes from, there is a substantial amount of support. However, the second argument that I would make is that some of the support that Museveni still enjoys is purely because of name recognition and familiarity. The same way that a lot of Kenyans did vote for Kenya's second president, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, to the very end, just because of familiarity. For 24 years, he's the guy that you've known. For the older ones, they had even known him for much more. So in those scenarios, you know, it is more of the devil that you know, being somebody that you're aligning with because of that kind of familiarity. The same reason for much older Kenyans, you cannot say a bad word about Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, even though now that history is beginning to spotlight him in ways that are not particularly favorable. So if you've been president for 40 years, if more than 75% of people in your country were born after you became president, then of course you're going to have people who support you because of that psychological reason of familiarity, and they're not necessarily exposed to, you know, to the negative aspects of your leadership. But even then, when a lot of these people begin to see that there's a high cost of living, a lot of them also begin to look at you and they begin having question marks that why is it that bread used to cost X amount of Uganda shillings in 1993 and now it's costing this. So thankfully, that does begin to open up the eyes of a number of people. Then the other thing I can credit him, although I don't agree with the reasons he has done it, he has also successfully run the narrative that Bobi Wine is a puppet of the West. One of the arguments that I get a lot from people who don't support Bobi Wine is precisely that. That is a puppet of the West. And you see that works well for Museveni because, like I said earlier, you know, we do credit him for speaking up to the global bullies. And because he knows that that is a strong point of his, it's a lot easier. It's like he has a moral high ground to then say that Bobi Wine is a puppet, and a number of people believe him, which takes me back to the issue of narrative, that we, the African people, must always understand that narrative is an extremely powerful thing. Yeah, so that's how I would interpret some of the support that he still enjoys.
Bobi Wine, pop star, turned a very popular political figure in Uganda. Wait, but before we go to him, there was Besigye. What do you think about Besigye? What do you think about Besigye when he was in his prime in opposition politics? What do you think about Kizza Besigye?
I think Kizza Besigye suffered more from Museveni's entrenched support because by the time he began opposing Museveni, remember he was Museveni's doctor. Just to also show you what does that say about Museveni's character. That, you know, he can easily, completely, arguably betray somebody who was in the bush with him and fought alongside him.
He was in the NRA?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yeah, Kizza Besigye was. So that says something about Museveni. And the fact that he can just casually say that the reason he's still in prison is because he doesn't have good lawyers, you know, also speaks to the kind of person he has become. So I think that Kizza Besigye, it's difficult to do a very objective audit of whether he in fact won or whether even those were sham elections. But what is clear is that Kizza Besigye has been a very consistent purveyor of truth, messenger of truth in Uganda regarding the bad governance. And if that wasn't the case, Museveni would not have bothered with him. He only bothered with him to the extent of now even imprisoning him, because indeed what he's saying is the truth, and the truth hurts. So I like the fact that when there were prayers for Kizza Besigye some 1.5 months ago, Bobi Wine and his wife, Babi, attended those prayers, that Bobi Wine always acknowledges him as a true leader of the opposition and is not lost in ego fights of who is bigger. So I agree with the stance and the consistency that Kizza Besigye took. Would he have made a great president? We will never know. But he's still alive. He can still win elections that are free and fair. But until now, had he actually defeated Museveni, we will never know, whether he would have been as great a president as he was an opposition leader. But we urge Museveni to, since he's controlling Uganda's judiciary, to then control it and, let Kizza Besigye go back home.
He's not a threat.
Yeah.
He can't be a threat to him. There's no way Besigye can become a threat to Museveni. Museveni has control of law enforcement and the army. He should.
We are saying unequivocally, we are saying unequivocally that free Kizza Besigye. Yeah.
Okay, Bobi Wine now. You know what? I kind of like Bobi Wine, maybe because I'm young and he's young. But Museveni is saying he's a Western puppet. But before we go to the puppet, what do you think about Bobi Wine as a political figure? Do you think he represents change that is desperately needed in Uganda? What do you think?
I think Bobi Wine represents one of the most powerful lessons for the young people of Africa today. It goes back to that singular word I mentioned earlier, organizing. Because Bobi Wine didn't just make the transition from a pop star to a politician, initially a member of parliament, but Bobi Wine was able to organize, first of all, found the National Unity Platform, his party, and then to organize that party into a formidable force, which is something that is sorely lacking across Africa. You had the Arab Spring, you had the mostly young people toppling the president of Tunisia, mostly young people toppling Hosni Mubarak. But because of that failure to then organize politically, other people benefited from the organization. You see, even in 2014, mostly young people were able to organize massive protests that ended up toppling Blaise Compaoré. But those who benefited were not these mostly young people. So Bobi Wine went a step further. Not only did he organize a massive resistance against Museveni, but he built this party and did the hard work of organizing this party so that it becomes a party that is truly national in its outlook. Now, imagine, for example, if the Gen Z of Kenya in 2014 had been able to do that, to then tap into the fact that they're the most populous cohort in Kenya anyway, and then really, really organize themselves like Bobi Wine did. It's not too late. They can still do that. They can still do that. You see? Yeah. The same thing applies in Tanzania. Whether the young people of Tanzania then join Chadema, as I urge them to, and then really galvanize that party even further. Because Chadema was founded in the early 90s. And currently, the leadership of Chadema, apart from Tunde Lissu, there's also John Heche, is the vice chairman, who is a youthful person. He is not in his 20s or even 30s, I think, but is a fairly youthful fellow who understands the needs of young people. And if you look at a lot of leaders in that party, they're also very youthful. You can't say the same of some of these big parties in Kenya. So Bobi Wine, For me, one of his biggest achievements has been to even organize what has now become a truly formidable political party in Uganda, because that's not a simple thing.
Yeah.
The only other person that did that is, of course, Julius Malema.
EFF.
Yeah, with EFF. So I think, and honestly, I can go out on a limb and say that Bobi Wine won these last elections, hands down. The reason I say that is because, as you rightly said a short while ago, indeed in urban centers, he enjoys the most widespread support. Bobi Wine enjoys the most widespread support in urban centers, but even in the rural areas, you saw when he was campaigning, wherever he went, there were massive crowds. I know massive crowds do not always translate into massive votes, but if you want to know that he was a threat even in rural areas, Museveni did everything. General Muhoozi, Museveni's son, did everything to ensure that even campaigning in these rural areas was so difficult for Bobi Wine. You see, so we have established that he is a great organizer. He organized this amazing political outfit that he always says is actually a movement, with the party, the NUP party, being but one of the tools that is in this movement. You see? So that's how I look at him regarding the issue of being a puppet of the West. People should just put evidence on the table and say that in the year of our Lord 2024, he received $20 million from the CIA. The NUP members then passed the following laws, a GMO law in Uganda that is serving the interests of the West, put on the table such evidence so that it moves from rhetoric. If anything, all this GMO stuff that is happening in Uganda is because of the government, Museveni's government.
Exactly. A huge presence in Uganda.
Yeah. And that's not Bobi Wine.
Yeah, it's not Bobi.
Yeah.
It's Museveni.
Exactly. Yeah.
Muhoozi.
Yeah.
General Muhoozi, Museveni's son.
Yeah.
He's head of the army, yeah?
Yes, he's the head of the army. And many say he's the de facto president anyway. And people should just look at the utter nepotism of having your own son as the head of the army, C'est pas normal, as you say in French. It's not normal, It's crazy. It's totally crazy. And it speaks to a twisted regime that you'd actually have your own son as the head of the army. That alone speaks to who Museveni has become. And because he's the heir apparent, people need to wake up to the reality that if things in Uganda remain as they are, then you can take it to the bank. You will then have a President Muhoozi 5 years from now if things remain as they are. Because now he's even more emboldened. But, as I have told him in the last couple of days, you always like to push your weight around and to bully Ugandans and also Kenyans.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Americans, he's very quick to apologize.
Like the way he did recently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, that's cowardice. And I hope that the world and the people of Uganda in particular then begin to see him for who he is, that somebody who is falling over himself to apologize to the Americans, who is the puppet now?
Man, Uganda. Let me tell you, when I was 14 years old, that's the first time that's the only time I've ever been to Uganda.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
The people are more courteous there than Kenyans. Kenyans, we're a bit rough.
Yes.
We're a bit rough, but Ugandans, very courteous. I really liked we went to the old parliament of the Baganda Kingdom.
Yes.
Yeah, we went there. We even went to the recent parliament.
Yes.
It was
amazing.
Yeah. I really liked Uganda. Uganda is a beautiful place.
It is. Yeah.
And we wish them all the best.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of Uganda now that Museveni has been crowned as the winner of the 2026 election? To me, if you ask me, it doesn't look good, because now it's a very, very impunity. Like it's full of impunity that he put his son to be the head of the army. I mean, that's just
yeah.
It's sad, but from a political standpoint, it's a very smart move to solidify his survival politically.
Yeah,
that's why I hate politics. Yeah. There's an interview that I did last week, and I told the host, I hate politics.
Yeah,
I love leadership.
Yeah,
politics. You do all these things. Politics is all about playing all these games to solidify your political survival.
Yeah.
And this political survival that you're really fighting for is really not benefiting the people.
Yeah.
So let's, I mean, what do you think about the future of Uganda?
Yeah.
Leadership-wise, what do you think? Political-wise, what do you think?
Yeah. First of all, I want the people of Uganda to understand that you are not alone. We are in this together. Not just as East Africa, but as Africa. And the time has come for every African to understand one thing, that in Africa, we either rise together or sink together. So the people of Uganda, you're not alone. Just because my passport is not Ugandan or somebody else's passport is not Ugandan does not mean that we're not going to stand in solidarity. That's very important to understand. And why I start with that is, first of all, my fear and my hope. My fear is this. You see, time is a great healer for better and for worse. For example, when somebody is grieving over a loved one who has departed, whereas time helps you to live with that, the grief never really goes away, but time helps you to learn to live with that. And the pain is not as raw or heartbreak. Who hasn't been through heartbreak?
Yeah, we've all been.
Yeah, we've all been there. On a light note, people should understand that even Pan-Afrikanists like you and I have faced heartbreak. Right?
Yeah. I know. We always, we always hard and all.
Exactly.
We're human.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you face heartbreak, the early days are horrible. And then, in today's age, you're quickly looking at this person's status. Are they moving on or not? But as time goes by, you learn to live with that. And sometimes time helps you to even wonder what you had seen in them. See? So now the negative side of that, and why I'm mentioning that is this. Time, 2024, June and July, and August and September and October, many Kenyans had raw pain and raw anger, and they would not even dare to look at William Ruto on their television sets. Or, as they're scrolling, if they see William Ruto, they quickly scroll away, And it was clear to everybody that this guy is completely a one-term president. I'm glad that a lot of people still believe that. But the point is that raw anger is not there anymore. That raw anger that was a cross-border in the country, because life has to go on, and then people, begin to learn to live with the fact that, okay, he's a president, and meanwhile I'm busy job hunting if I'm a youth. I'm busy job hunting, and if I'm a parent, I am busy trying to see how my kids will eat. So everyday life is happening and time is going by. So yes, you still dislike this president, possibly even hate him, but you're no longer preoccupied with him. So the point then becomes that you start becoming fertile ground, for this president to make certain arguments. Who would have thought that President William Ruto would go to a place like Ondele and be cheered wildly? Who would have thought that? But you see, things are happening that are making it easier for him to be cheered wildly over there. So I would like to warn all leaders, all Pan-Afrikanists, and all true leaders out there that do whatever you can not to be elitist. It is so easy to start living in your own elitist bubble when you think that just because you believe something means that there's going to be change on the ground. Because that is why Congo continues to suffer. That is why Sudan continues to suffer. Because just because we believe that RSF is evil doesn't mean they'll stop perpetrating genocide. You see? And why I mention that in relation to my fear for Uganda is that soon Museveni is going to be sworn in. Maybe by the time this airs, maybe he has already been sworn in as president. You saw how after he won, already mainstream media globally was, there are multiple headlines to the effect that Museveni wins resoundingly. Yes, when you read the story, they would then explain that Bobi Wine has contested this and, what have you. But the headline is that he has won by 71%. So after he's sworn in, and after Uganda's oil, now that they discovered oil, after some of those returns start coming in and people begin feeling a little bit of the benefits of that oil and life starts going back to normal, I kid you not, after a while, Bobi Wine and his adherents, very strong supporters, they begin to look like lone rangers because life is going on, because of the shrugging your shoulders syndrome that I talked about. Because even folks who completely disagree with Museveni are like, what can we do? Life has to go on. See, exactly what is happening in Tanzania.
Okay.
In a week's time, Samia Suluhu will have finished her first 100 days in office. And if you look at Tanzania's mainstream media, you'd be excused to think that things are completely back to normal. If you go to Kariakoo in Dar es Salaam, downtown Dar es Salaam, things are indeed sort of back to normal, where normal in this sense, what I mean is business is going on. People are buying stuff, the hawkers are selling stuff, kids are going to school. And I don't say that to blame the people that life is going on, because all human beings, life has to go on, irrespective of the circumstances. But my fear for Uganda is that as that continues happening, it's so easy for Bobi Wine and the National Unity Platform and Kizza Besigye and other politicians to then just have to wait for the next elections. But meanwhile, now let me go to further articulate my fear. Meanwhile, Muhoozi will be entrenching and solidifying his power. You see? But my hope for Uganda is this. Amongst the new members of parliament in Uganda's parliament is a former university student leader, still in his 20s. And he is in the National Unity Platform. He's inspired by Bobi Wine. We're going to need the National Unity Platform legislators like him not to rest in that parliament, to keep coming up with new with new proposals, new bills, even if they are then shot down because Museveni has strangled the legislature. But they cannot afford to rest on their laurels at all. They must be a lot more active and a lot more vocal. And in the same vein, Bobi Wine will have to step it up even more. He'll have to step it up even more in terms of organizing these legislators, in terms of continuing to build the National Unity Platform even more, in terms of articulating Museveni and NRM's misrule of Uganda even more. He's going to have to keep doing that more so that the overall narrative of Uganda as a country that is being led to the cliff by the NRM government, that's a narrative he must win. he must totally win that narrative in the same way that Chadema in Tanzania and other people must also win the narrative of helping the world and Tanzanians to constantly see the fact that this government of CCM is also leading Tanzania to the cliff. So my hope for Uganda is that these youthful parliamentarians that are now going to be in the legislature, all the NUP politicians, and more importantly, the masses, my hope is that they will not lose that narrative, that they will continue articulating this misrule. And honestly, General Muhoozi makes it very easy to do that because his verbal diarrhea will never stop. And it must not be normalized. People must not shrug their shoulders and say, that's just Muhoozi being Muhoozi. He's a powerful fellow, de facto president by some accounts. So I pray and I hope that the people of Uganda win that narrative. And my second final challenge regarding the way forward for Uganda has to go to every African, especially East Africans. If you know you're from Kenya, if you know you're from Tanzania, you know you're from South Sudan, Rwanda. I know Rwanda is really, really tricky because of their genocide experience and a lot of things. But if you know you're from East Africa, understand that as Uganda goes, so will you. As Tanzania goes, so will you. So Kenyans do not have the luxury of just looking at that as those neighbors of ours. Because what's happening to those neighbors of yours will is already knocking on your door in Kenya. So if somehow you remain vigilant and you continue standing in solidarity with Ugandans, you're also going to be beneficiaries because it will help you to also spotlight Kenya itself. After all, elections are in 2027. Yeah.
Yeah, we are all in this together.
Exactly.
If Uganda is in a disarray, it will affect us.
Exactly.
Because Uganda is the biggest trade partner of Kenya.
Exactly.
We get onions from there. We get a lot of farm produce from Uganda. So Uganda is very pivotal in Kenya.
Exactly.
And also Tanzania. And Tanzania is also... So we are interconnected. That's what Pan-Afrikanism is all about.
Exactly.
So when I hear people say, leave that Uganda thing alone, or leave that Tanzania. No, we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
And people think Pan-Afrikanism is some radical way. Well, it is radical.
Yes.
But the way people are thinking about it is like, oh, this is too radical.
Exactly.
But if you think about it deeply, it's not that radical.
Exactly.
It's just the unification of African people.
Exactly.
I mean, Europe have united the economies.
Yeah.
I mean, people work in Spain and they live in England, or someone works in Madrid and they live in Lisbon. Yeah. Because of the mobility.
Exactly.
Because of how they've opened their borders.
Exactly, yeah.
So they can do it. Or that's NATO, or America and Europe have united their armies.
Yes.
So they can do all these things. These white people can do all these things, but Africans, we can't do it.
No, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the next 20 minutes, before we wind up, we were talking on phone and we had a very good conversation about African leadership and how we can pluck, first of all, how we can revolutionize African leadership by Africanizing it. You mentioned something about Council of Elders.
Yeah.
And how we can do referendum and how we can revolutionize democracy. That was a very good conversation. Let's kind of reenact it now.
Yeah.
How do you think we can revolutionize? We talked about coups, and we've established that it's like 5 out of 100 of African coups that were successful in terms of leaders coming in and changing the country for the better.
Exactly.
And then we have democracy now.
Yeah.
Which is what is happening in most of Africa.
Yeah.
It can either go either way.
Yeah.
Mostly, if you ask me, it has gone the wrong way.
Yeah.
So we have coups, majority of them going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And we have democracy, majority of our democratic systems
Yeah.
going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And by wrong way, I mean not serving the people.
Exactly.
So what do we do? How do we revolutionize African leadership? How do we change it for the better?
Yeah.
And for the betterment of the African people?
Yeah. Great question. And I dare say, really, really important. In fact, if people watch only a segment of this show, it should actually be this one, because now this one is completely solution oriented. Remember, I said we cannot afford to just diagnose and leave it there. We've got to prescribe and then work on that prescription. Now, I'd like to challenge your viewers to do something right now, as they're watching this, to go in the comment section and write like 3, 4, 5 of their favorite African presidents, dead or alive. Let them go and write. The reason I want them to do that is because I want to remind you, viewers, that out of about 500 elections, we have ended up, now remember, now that's democracy, Western style democracy. Africa has had about 500 elections.
Wow.
Out of those 500 or so elections, we have ended up with about 380 presidents and a few prime ministers. Because most of Africa, they have executive presidents. Now, go write your leaders, your favorite. I suspect that most of you, if not all of you, the people that you're going to write are going to be roughly 10 people. So same 10 people. You're going to see Patrice Lumumba there. You're going to see Traoré there. You're going to see Sankara. Those who are still alive, you're going to see maybe Duma Boko, Botswana's president. You may see John Mahama, the second version of John Mahama, seems to be doing good stuff. Yeah. So you're going to see the same 10, at most 15 names recurring over and over again. That is out of about 380 people. So ask yourself, just like we did for the coup d'etat, 100, but only 5 or so turn out to be good. Democracy, those who've come through the ballot box, it's an even smaller percentage that has ended up truly serving the African people. So ask yourself something. Surely there has to be something wrong with that system then.
Democracy.
Yeah. Because it has given us 380 people that were mostly bad for us, that have actually left Africa poorer. Folks in Africa who died in the 60s and 70s, if by chance they rise up today, they might say, let me go back to where I've just come from. Because they'll realize, oh my God, you people are poorer than how we were. What does that say about the presidents who've been leading this continent?
You
see. So, before you rush to blame the electorate, it cannot be that for 70 years, from the late 50s to now, 2026 February, it cannot be that all these millions of Africans over 7 decades just can't choose good leaders. It can't be that way at all. Because I know that sometimes, even I usually say, people get leaders that they deserve. Sometimes it is interpreted to mean that it is we, the electorate, that keep voting for bad leaders. But whereas there's truth in that, it is also because of the ballot box. Because Western-style democracy often rewards the loudest leaders. It often rewards the richest leaders. There's a reason even leaders like Hakainde Chilema, I have my beef with him nowadays, but he's a guy who ran for presidency so long. Eventually he won and, he started doing some good stuff. I will never understand why he had to go for for Samia Suluhu's swearing in. It was basically just him and I think the Somalia president. I will never understand why he had the audacity to say when he attended, to tell Tanzanians, you people, you shouldn't be demonstrating, Yeah, but the point is that he's also a very rich fellow. I suspect that if he didn't have the money that he has, he would never have been able to run for president that many times. So I hope we can appreciate that Western-style democracy will mostly reward you if you are extremely loud, extremely violent, or extremely rich.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, a lot of great leaders are neither of those things. They are not violent. They are not extremely rich. Neither are they extremely loud.
Yeah.
People who knew Dedan Kimathi, and I was just telling you earlier that we need to ensure that the world, most of Africa, appreciates that he was literally on the same level with the Sankaras of Africa.
Yes. Yes.
And the other day I talked to the lady who knew Dedan Kimathi, who used to sit in the same room with him, who used to serve him food. And one of the things she said, Orina, was that Dedan Kimathi was a very quiet guy. That doesn't fit the description of a very loud leader. Dedan Kimathi was not very rich. He was not even rich. Thomas Sankara was not rich. So if Dedan Kimathi had run for president under the Western-style democracy, I would bet that he would not even be among the top 3. Because Western-style democracy would not reward a leader like him.
Of course.
At all. So, yes, you have a lot of Africans who vote for people because their second names are like theirs. They're from the same tribe or region. Yes, you have Africans who vote for presidents because they were given handouts. But as I apportion blame to them, I also apportion blame to the Western-style democracy that will only reward you if you then give out handouts. Or if you have goons who will terrorize the people. See what Muhoozi is doing in Uganda. They literally went and arrested, or a more accurate term would be abducted, the agents of the National Unity Platform. That's democracy, yeah? Because, if you are not that violent, then you can't win. You see?
Okay.
So, I feel that the one area that we Africans have not shed enough light on is on the fact that the Western-style democracy is inherently flawed. Inherently flawed, completely. Now, having said that, what's the solution? Remember that until the late 50s, there had never been an election, a Western-style election in Africa. Never. Until the late 50s, when we started gaining independence, when Ghana becomes the first sub-Saharan African country to be independent. So how could it be, Orina? Are we saying that we will only focus on what started happening in terms of governance 70 years ago? Are we completely wishing away, or rather sweeping away every other governance system in Africa before the late 50s is invalid, is useless? Is that what we are saying? Now, to show you why we cannot dare to behave like that, and that's how we've been behaving since the late 50s, you just have to look at northern Kenya. You just have to look at Ethiopia, the Oromo people. Current president of Ethiopia is from the Oromo community. You just have to look at how the governance structure, the traditional governance structure in the Oromo people. Anybody watching this, just go and Google Oromo traditional governance structure, and you'll see for yourself. But let me make it a bit easier for you by explaining to you how it used to work very briefly. The different age sets amongst the Oromo had their own internal leadership structures that rewarded natural leaders or willing leaders, or those who are willing to learn as leaders. It's sort of like when you go to play football, you don't, as kids, you never used to say, okay, now we're voting for you as our captain. As you're playing football and some amongst you, are better in field coaching, saying, no, pass the ball there. Okay, do this. that's something inherent or something acquired. But even if it is acquired, the more you're playing football together, the more it is coming out among some of you. And then, before you know it, you have a leader that you all agree that this fellow is like our great captain here. So the Oromo had a system where the different age sets had internal systems of selecting leaders in that age set, of equipping those leaders, and then these leaders would work collaboratively with leaders from other age sets.
Okay.
In other words, there was no ageism.
All right.
That says that just because you're young, you're a great leader.
Okay.
Or just because you're old, you're a great leader. Or, the pendulum swings on either extreme. So now there's a notion, people also seem to think that any leader who is young will automatically be a good leader, which is not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And that's what I said during the Gen Z protest.
Yes.
Because everybody was romanticizing young people.
Exactly.
We have young fools, right?
Yes.
That's what I told every single...
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So the Oromo people didn't have ageism, but from the time you're a child to the time you become a teenager, a young adult, a middle-aged adult, a senior citizen, they had a very clear system that encouraged, nurtured, and rewarded leadership over all this. And then they had a system where there would be a team of leaders emerging from these age sets. And these leaders, notice that they were not elected in a singular electoral cycle because the ballot box is not even existing, even though they have their own ways of collaborating with nature, with different cohorts, different generations, to nurture and mentor different leaders. And then the apex leaders would still only rule for a maximum of 8 years. They had an 8-year cycle where once you finish your leadership during these 8 years, the next leadership team simply takes over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, we cannot, even if we had 2 hours, we can literally do a whiteboard and look at that. It even has a name and go deeper into details. But suffice it to say that this was about nurturing leadership from childhood. Okay. This was about ensuring that no singular individual lords it over all of you as the singular messianic leader, or no singular cohort of leaders, team of leaders, can remain leaders for 40 years like Museveni. And notice that it is a team. It's not even a single person. But even then, they have to make way. You see? So if we look at that, if we then sit down with the old Oromo people to understand it even more, because some of them still have that memory of how it used to be, how it still is in some of their, leadership at the village level, we will be able to pick from that very critical principles. We will be able to pick on from that very practical steps on how we can have more Afrocentric leadership that is not just copied and pasted from the West.
Yeah.
Now, there was also something almost similar but different amongst the Igbo people.
Okay.
Where the Igbo people did not have a singular king like other African communities. Picture a scenario where you have like 30 villages in southwestern Nigeria that the Igbo people come from, and each of those villages has their own leader, their own leadership structure, but they are working collaboratively. What that meant is that it was impossible for a given leader of a given village to dictate how this village 20 kilometers from here should live their life. But because they are all Igbos and they are all from the same community, they still had a lot of similarities, even though they nurtured leadership at the village level in multiple villages without having a singular king, a singular ruler. It was the same, roughly the same amongst the Nuer people. South Sudan, and a host of other African communities. So what can we borrow from that? When you look at a federal system like America's, is in reality simply a large-scale version of what the Igbo people are doing, because every state is ruling itself. You know, in the US, even our brother Mamdani Zohran, born in Uganda, that's why I'm calling him our brother, he's the one in charge of the police. Mayors are in charge of the police. And that is a principle that is reflecting what was happening in these Igbo villages. Because Mamdani is in charge of the police, not Donald Trump. Mamdani is in charge of the schools. That's why he's able to talk of free education. It's not Donald Trump. Of course, the federal government has its responsibilities, but the whole federal system was a lot stronger in Africa than it is even in America or Germany. Yet, Africa then ran away from the federal system.
Why?
In favor of colonialism.
Colonialism.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because it was about divide and rule. They needed to have a scenario where Britain or France or Germany or Italy or Spain or Portugal is controlling the entire land as they divided to themselves during the Berlin Conference. So if these traditional forms of governance had been allowed to flourish, that was going to be impossible. Because the people of southwestern Nigeria, multiple villages, would have said, if you guys want to be led by the British, it's up to you. Yeah, we don't even allow an Igbo elder from the next village to lord it over this village. So how on earth, I was about to swear, you know, how on earth are we going to allow a foreigner from thousands of miles away to lord it over us? So one of the worst forms of colonialism, one of the worst impacts of colonialism was to introduce Western governance that then perpetuated and nurtured colonialism. And to date, as long as we maintain the ballot box exactly as it is, no wonder neo-colonialism remains alive and active. What then must we do? And by the way, for those who will say that multiple African communities had kings anyway, I'm going to remind you something. Yes, in Ghana, the Ashanti Kingdom, yes, they had kings, but you know that those kings could be dethroned because there were very strong council of elders that held the kingship accountable. The Queen Mother was very, very powerful, extremely powerful. You see, so it's not like you had a king who could just say, snap their fingers and everybody has to rise up, or snap their fingers and everybody has to roll on the ground. The accountability mechanism was extremely strong, so much so that the king could be dethroned. You see, so even in cases where you had monarchies, a lot of times the accountability mechanism was extremely strong. Nowadays, if we say that, can we hold Ibrahim Traoré accountable? Probably a quarter of your viewers are already going to look at you with question marks. And some will even go ahead and brand you, are you becoming an imperialist mole or what? But accountability is as African as it gets. Traditional African societies were as accountable as it gets. Why do you think there were no poor people in traditional Africa? Why do you think there were no homeless people? There were no homeless people because the entire community was accountable for itself, for each other. That's where Ubuntu comes from. I am because we are. We are because I am. That was embedded in traditional Africa at the societal level and at the governance level. So kings couldn't just do whatever the hell they wanted to do. Because accountability was strong. So the low-hanging fruit is simply this, that as we work towards having this conversation and as we work towards getting rid of Western-style democracy and gradually introducing Afrocentric forms of governance, that are practical and truly responsive to the African people. The lowest hanging fruit that all Africans can pluck is this. Can you, at an individual level, start to normalize holding your president accountable, holding your leader accountable? And my challenge to people is this. For the African presidents that you particularly admire, can you hold them to an even higher standard of accountability? I remember I shared with, when Ibrahim Traoré accounted to the Burkinabe people and said his government's achievements of 2025, I tried to highlight the same to people so that they can begin seeing beyond the symbol. Do you know, Rina, that today in Burkina Faso, a number of West African countries actually are going for treatment in Burkina Faso.
As we speak?
As we speak, because the healthcare in Burkina Faso is markedly better today.
Oh, wow.
You see?
Wow.
So I am saying the good that is happening, but if tomorrow I also say something like, do the Fulani people in northern Burkina Faso, do they feel like they're being victimized? Do they feel like maybe some of the volunteer forces are treating them like jihadists? If I just pose that question, people should understand that it's all part of just holding Traoré accountable. And it is not now suddenly saying that he's fighting the Fulani people. No. That's why I am proudly and happily saying that as Kenyans flock India, you have a case where Nigerians, not necessarily Nigerians, but people from Niger and Malians and, Benin, they are flocking Burkina Faso. And we are celebrating that.
That's good.
You see? But if tomorrow we point out some things that are not happening that should be happening, or we raise certain question marks, people should understand that accountability is embedded in African forms of governance.
Yeah.
So, at an individual level, normalize holding all leaders accountable, whether it's the president or at the local council level. Normalize holding all of them accountable. Normalize coming up, strengthening policies that are weakening imperial presidencies, that are strengthening legislatures. Because currently in this Western-style democracy, legislatures are supposed to provide checks and balances for the executive. They usually don't do that because they're compromised. But we can normalize ensuring that the members of parliament, the legislature understands that we're watching. If you guys keep going to bed with the executive, we are watching and we're noting it. Because no constitutions have to change for that to be normalized. This is purely up to the electorate to realize that we can hold these people accountable. And because we can chew gum and hike the stairs, in other words, we can multitask. As we do that, we need to raise the volume of thinking outside the box, specifically thinking outside the ballot box. Yeah.
So the title of this section is Democracy versus Coups, which is better? From what we've talked about, I think it's none.
None, because they are all, the coups are reactionary. They are reacting to Western-style democracy.
Okay.
So that's why they have not given us transformative presidents. So it's all about thinking outside this ballot box. And if we only focus on coups, we are still confining ourselves to the same ballot boxes. Notice we're not saying that. A lot of haters will say, so what do you want us to do? That's why we've given them 3 examples. Actually 4. Nuer community, South Sudan. The Igbos, southwestern Nigeria. Oromo, Ethiopian, Kenya.
I like that Oromo one.
Yeah.
There's a way I like it.
Exactly.
The age sets way of
Exactly.
That's a very practical way of how you can run a society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we raise the volume of that so that in the next 10 years, in the next 15, 20 years, or even sooner in the case of some countries, we just need a generation, especially people who are below 30 years, to completely start adapting that way of thinking, that it is not written, neither in the Bible nor the Quran, that, oh ye people, you must adhere to Western-style democracy. Then why are we chaining ourselves to that? Mm-hmm. That's stupid. Mm. Let's stop doing that. Decolonize our minds.
Decolonize our minds. Yeah. Wow. Oof, this was heavy. Of course, DJ brings the knowledge and wisdom everywhere you go. Hey, DJ, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, give your last word.
Yeah.
On what we've talked about.
Yeah.
And encouragement to Africans who are watching. By the way, I always say this. My audience is majorly African diaspora.
Yeah.
Is African Americans, Africans in Europe, Africans in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Where they shout out to Jamaica. Jamaicans really watch my stuff.
Yeah.
And Kenya is very low in my demographic.
Yeah.
Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa.
Yeah.
So, but we're all Africans.
Exactly.
We're all Africans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What can you say to the black race right now?
Yeah.
You're looking at this camera.
Great. Jamaica, Wagwan. Mm-hmm. We are family. The entire Caribbean, we are family. Across Europe, whether you're British, black British, our brothers and sisters in France, the United States of America, if you're watching from New York, Washington, wherever you are, we are all part of the African family, whether you're in the motherland or in the diaspora. Your blood flows in me and my blood flows in you. Now, understand one thing. As long as you're African, it is incumbent on us as African people to transform Africa today. And one of the things we will have to do to transform Africa is addressing African governance. African governance. From the late 50s to now, February 2026, Africa has chained itself to Western-style democracy. And Africa has made the fatal assumption that the ballot box will always act on the voice of the people, when in fact it does not. And in the few cases that it does, the voice of the people is then stifled soon after they vote. And they have to wait for 4 more years, 5 more years to speak again. That is not African. We cannot bind ourselves to a form of governance that only began 70 years ago, when Africa is as old as life on earth. In fact, the cradle of mankind. So we must decolonize our minds from imagining that the only way we can have great leadership, transformative leadership, is through the ballot box. We have given you evidence today. We have made it clear that out of about 500 elections and about 380 presidents over the last 70 years, there are less than 10 presidents that have been truly transformative. That is all the evidence you need. And for those of you who are now proponents of coup d'etats, understand that they are simply reactions to the Western-style democracy, which is why out of about 100 successful coup d'etats, we have only ended up with less than 10 truly transformative presidents. So clearly, a time has come for Africans to think outside the ballot box. And we have given you evidence today that traditional Africa had powerful forms of governance that we simply need to look at and adapt to today's realities and today's needs. We must do that. And this show, this channel, Selling Africa to Africans, that I urge all of you to subscribe if you haven't, is playing its part to ensure that this conversation becomes even louder and louder and louder. And that is what transforming Africa entails. It is not about romanticizing Africa. It is not about being theoretic. That's part of it. but it is not the only part. It is about taking practical steps to transform Africa. So I urge you to take this away with you today, that we must transform the governance systems in Africa so that we stop perpetually focusing on regime change, but remaining with the same destructive, exploitative governance system. We must now ensure that there's systemic change. Thank you very much, and let's keep transforming Africa. We love you.
Wow, thank you, DJ. Thank you. Please come again. There are many things we have to discuss. Yeah. There are many things we can address.
Absolutely.
When it comes to Africa. Thank you so much. By the way, yes. your YouTube and your TikTok is very popular. Just plug everything here. Where can people reach you?
Just go to DJ Bwakali. That DJ is not because I was a disc jockey. It's just my name, DJ Bwakali. And that, as you can see on the screen, go to TikTok, DJ Bwakali, Instagram at DJ Bwakali, and YouTube at DJ Bwakali. And while you're at it, consider purchasing my book. It's known as Savannah Footprints. You can also see that on the screen. If you just Google DJ Bwakali Savannah Footprints, it's going to lead you to Amazon, where you can buy the book. And if due to moral reasons you don't buy books from Amazon, just reach out to Selling Africa to Africans, and they'll be able to direct you, sell the digital copy directly to you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Please see that like button, like it, share this video, and most importantly, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Somebody told me that, do I need to pay to subscribe? No, it's free. Just click the subscribe button. You'll be able to be more up to date with everything that I release every day and every week. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you.